Hey, it's Rich Terani. Thanks for watching. We're at the ITEXPO Tech Super Show 2025 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. On our program is Gerry Christensen. He is with Caller ID Reputation. Gerry, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Rich.
So tell us a little bit about your company. I mean, it's kind of implied in the name, but give us a little more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm with a company called Caller ID Reputation, and as you say, as the name implies, what we do is we provide visibility into what's going on for enterprise when they're trying to reach consumers. And so in other words, when they're placing calls, we let them know whether or not it goes through as normal or whether or not there's a spam flag or something like that that may need to be fixed.
And why is that helpful for them?
Well, it's extremely helpful because one of the unintended consequences of fighting the bad robocalls, the unwanted calls that people don't want to have, is that the analytics engines, sometimes they get things wrong. And so we have a relationship with them where we identify when they do make a mistake, when they have what we call a false positive, when they think that it's spam or they think that it's unlawful, but it's perhaps really not. What we do is identify when that happens, and we gather the evidence to support whether or not there should be a fix. And the way we do that is we actually look at the analytics themselves. In some cases, it's the same analytics engine that flagged it, but we also look at a whole bunch of different analytics. Some of them are even from OTT providers. You know some of them, like Umail, for example, or RoboKiller, and quite a few others that a lot of people have not even heard of. So the way I like to phrase it is we provide the what and the why. The what is there a less than optimal experience from a consumer perspective? Because if you're getting a call from your doctor and it's marked as spam, you probably want to answer that, right? So that's the kind of thing that we fix. And what we do is we look at the analytics, and our customers can fix it themselves, DIY kind of basis, going directly to the analytics engines. But we also offer a managed service where, kind of a white glove service, where on their behalf we go directly to the analytics engines. And oftentimes we fix it before they even know that there's a problem. So it's a very popular service. So that's it.
Fantastic. Is there anything else we should know about, new things happening in the market or with your company?
Oh, absolutely. So for example, there's a lot of things. I'll just pick on one. So one thing, for example, is this thing called branded calling, and probably most of the folks here have heard of branded calling, but sort of the new variant of that maybe people have heard a little bit about but don't necessarily know a lot about is this thing called BCID, which is an acronym that the CTIA put together to refer to RCD-based branded calling. And RCD-based branded calling is rich call data. And the really interesting thing about that is there's some of the same capabilities with this RCD variant as compared to the previous version, but there's some advantages to it. Now, one of the advantages to it is it uses an open protocol. In other words, it's completely open, standards-based. It's not proprietary to any one vendor. It relies on stir shaken. A lot of folks have heard of stir shaken. That's the means of authenticating and validating calls to make sure that you can know the network, know the number associated with the network, so on and so forth. So sort of the catch with BCID is you need to reliably get A-level attestation. Because if you don't get A-level attestation for whatever reason, it can't be displayed at the terminating end, it being the branded calling experience. And ideally, what that branded calling experience is going to be the name of the company, obviously, just like calling name, just like CNAM, a logo, reason for the call, a skin. So in other words, the back of your phone, like normally it might look gray, and the phone number, it might show the color scheme of the company. So that's the kind of thing that's desirable. The challenge is we don't have all of the carriers involved yet. And if you think about it, you need to have at least all of the big three wireless carriers, right? You need to have AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. So far, there's only one of them involved. We really need all three to make it work. The other thing you need to have direct IP routes. Because remember I said stir shaken, it relies on A-level attestation. If you don't have direct IP routes, it's highly likely that you'll hit one of those TDM SS7 holes, because there's still a lot of SS7 out there. And when you do, the token is stripped. The token is something that's put into the message stream of stir, the front end part, and it's sent down to the far end so shaken can validate. Well, the problem is that token, if it's stripped by SS7, the original claim information that goes in there, in this case for BCID, the logo and all that stuff, that's gone. So you can't render a branded call. So it's this new great thing that it's going to democratize branded calling, where instead of just 3 dominant players that are currently doing branded calling, First Orion, TransUnion, and TNS, it'll open it up to virtually anybody that can be part of the branded calling ecosystem. But we have those two challenges. We need all three of the wireless carriers involved, and we also need direct IP routes, ideally, because otherwise it's kind of like roulette with least cost routing, whether or not you hit an SS7 hole. Our involvement in that is we are both a vetting agent and an onboarding agent. But as I say, you need to have all three of those carriers on board. So to a large extent, it hasn't really taken off yet because there's just one carrier so far.
Do you expect it to?
I expect it to ultimately. I think ultimately there'll be a lot of pressure there. As a matter of fact, I think once we get the second one, the third one will probably be like, maybe we should do this. Inertia is a powerful thing, and I'm sure their vendors are happy with what they're currently doing, and they've got some good reasons when they say, hey, what we've got now works, and it's true, it does, because they do not rely on stir shaken. They do out-of-band signaling for the authentication and validation, and the way that works is on the originating end, it's typically the originating service provider is involved with it. What they'll do is they will create a timestamp and authenticate that that call came from a particular OSP, originating service provider. That timestamp is passed downstream to the terminating service provider and their analytics engine so that when a call comes through, they can validate, a call just came in the last second or whatever. That call must be okay. The reason why that's really important is you never ever want to brand a call that's actually spoofed. You've probably received spoofed calls just like everybody else. I've received them as well. If you've got a branded call that says it's your doctor and it's really somebody spoofing your doctor, that could be really bad. So current version uses that out-of-band signaling, but it's all proprietary. Does not rely on stir shaken. So it's kind of a good thing because stir shaken has challenges right now. But I firmly believe that we will get all three of the big carriers, and I also firmly believe that there'll be some reasonable economics around this where you can get a direct IP connection so that you can actually have this BCID work. Now our involvement with this, I was starting to touch on that. We are a vetting agent and an onboarding agent. Vetting basically means you're doing KYC.
Know your customer.
Know your customer, that's right. Too many acronyms, right? We've been doing KYC for years for what we already do because we require our customers to register their telephone numbers with us for the service that we provide that I mentioned earlier. There's some additional requirements there that CTI requires. It's not super heavy lift. It's a very solemn task though because you want to get it right. You don't want to overlook things and all of a sudden you let somebody that maybe is doing unlawful scammy stuff or whatever doing branded calls. You don't want to allow that to happen. We're also an onboarding agent. Now the onboarding agent works with the vetting agent and they also are involved with the money, like paying different parties for doing different things. There's also something called a signing agent. We are not currently doing that ourselves. The signing agent could be the OSP, the originating service provider, but it could also be somebody else. The signing agent is that stir part that I talked about, so that's really, really important. There's another role that we've taken on, kind of an unofficial role, but I think it's very, very important. We refer to it as a auditing agent, and that's very germane to what we do because I mentioned earlier, we provide visibility into what's actually going on with calls. So for BCID, we provide visibility into does the call go through as expected? Does it go through as branded or not? Really, really important because again, BCID, if you don't get A-level attestation, maybe it doesn't go through at all. The other thing that we can provide visibility into is does a call go through as branded that shouldn't at all? Because if for some reason or another, most likely that's not going to happen with BCID because again, it relies on stir shaken. So that would actually be a situation where the wrong party is signing the call. And that does happen, by the way, Rich. We've heard of that happening, which is also something that we monitor too, because we encourage our enterprise companies to do test calls with us so we can get the stir shaken information. And so that if we know who's signing their calls for them and we see a call hit a honeypot, because we work with honeypots, we've got some of our own, we've got partners.
The honeypots are just basically to show there's like seeds within the database to make sure that something goes awry, you know about it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, another term. So honeypot basically is a telephone number that a human being's not using. A human being could have used it in the past. Sometimes they're completely virgin numbers. But the bad guys, as we know with their broadcast robocalls, they'll call all kinds of numbers. So we look at honeypots to see, does a call go through, hit one of these honeypots? First of all, that could be a high probability TCPA violation. It could be a problem with right party contact if they didn't use the reassigned number database. But if it's a completely virgin number, it could be a problem. But with branded calling, if we see a call hit that's branded, that shouldn't be branded, because we're looking at that stir shaking information, that's one of the other things we provide. So make a long story short, that auditing function we feel is really important, not only in terms of getting things set up and started with BCID, but also ongoing from a monitoring perspective to make sure things are working properly and that the bad guys aren't taking advantage of things.
Great. So in summary, your company, you obviously know the ins and outs of not only the current state of the art in ensuring calls from an enterprise get through, but also you're on top of what's happening in the future. So companies that are placing calls that are going out should be working with a company like yours to maximize their outreach to clients and making sure that the calls do get through as advertised or as intended, and don't get blocked or end up getting marked as junk or spam or whatever. And so it's a win for your clients, and it's a win for the end user who gets to see the caller ID and who it is, and then the numbers, from, like you said, from doctors, etc., do get through to them.
That's absolutely right, Rich. You got that perfect. We should hire you to do our marketing.
We can talk after this is over.
No, you're absolutely right. And I would add one more thing. I would say, if you're an enterprise, even if you're an SMB, Joe the plumber or whatever, if you're concerned at all about your business identity and your reputation, find a trusted party like Caller ID Reputation to register your telephone numbers with. Because unless we know your telephone numbers, we can't give you visibility, because we're only looking for those numbers that we're concerned about, those that are registered with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Rich.